Well, good morning and greetings. Before we get started, let's just remember why we're gathering. Uh, Objectives here, and just to remember, is that we're seeking to become increasingly faithful believers by building up our knowledge, understanding, and belief, and helping to work out our actions so that they demonstrate our belief. And as a reminder, Yahweh is saving his people, believers. The whole fallen and deceitful world that's under the dominion of Satan is judged and destined for destruction at the coming day of Yahuwah. But he is saving and delivering those who choose him and believe him, believers, the spiritual seed of Abraham. Believers will participate in the covenants and promises of Yahuwah, that the covenants and promises Yahuwah has made to his people, including everlasting or eternal high or life through resurrection, an eternal home in the promised land where he abides with us, Mashiach, who is our Savior, our Kohen HaKadosh, or High Priest, and Sovereign, or King, and a future with Elohim without separation, where we are his people, and he is our Elohim, where he is our Father, and we are his children. Our responsibility while we wait for the fulfillment of the promises is to seek him and believe him. We must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. We must believe and follow. Our belief needs to incorporate faithful obedience. And we meet at appointed times according to his instruction to learn of him and his ways. We seek to make this saying true, but if anyone loves Elohim, this one is known by him. All right. Shall we share in the Lord's Prayer?
Yes.
Yahuwah,
Father in heaven, sanctified and Kodesh be your name. May your kingdom come and your will be done
on earth
as it is in
Shemayim.
Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our wrongs as we forgive those who have wronged us. And do not lead us into trials or temptations, but deliver us from wickedness and evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power, and the kabod forever.
Amen. All right. Well,
I think we're at chapter 4 in Genesis.
Genesis in the Old Writings.
Bereshith.
Yep.
Yes,
Get pulled up for everybody. Okay. So here we are at chapter 4. All right. Go ahead.
And Adam knew Hawa, his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain. It's Cain. And said, I have gained a man from Yahuwah. And again she gave birth to his brother Habel. And Habel became a keeper of sheep, but Cain became a tiller of the ground. And it came to be in the course of that time that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to Yahuwah. And Habel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. And Yahuwah looked to Habel and his offering, but he did not look to Cain and his offering. And Cain was very wroth, and his face fell. And Yahuwah said to Cain, I'm having trouble pronouncing that word, his name.
That's good.
Why are you wroth? And why is your face fallen? If you do well, is there not acceptance? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should master it. And Cain told Habel, his brother, come, let us go into the field. And it came to be when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Habel, his brother, and killed him. And Yahuwah said to Cain, where is Habel, your brother? And he said, I do not know. Am I my brother's guard? And he said, what have you done? And the voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened up its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. And Cain said to Yahuwah, my wickedness is too great to bear. See, you've driven me from the face of the ground today, and I'm hidden from your face. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and it shall be that anyone who finds me kills me. And Yahuwah said to him, well, if anyone kills Cain, vengeance is taken on him sevenfold. And Yahuwah placed a sign for Cain, lest anyone finding him kills him. So Cain went out from the presence of Yahuwah and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Hanok. And he built a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Hanok. This is before the Hanok that pleased Yahweh was taken away. This is not that Enoch. This is one prior.
Right, correct.
And to Hanok was born Arad, and Arad brought forth Mahuyalel, and Mahuyael brought forth Methusael, and Methusael brought forth Lamech. And Lamech took for himself two wives, and the name of one was Adah, and the name of the second was Silla. And Adah bore Yabel. He was the father of those who dwell in tents with livestock. And his brother's name was Hubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and the flute. As for Silla, she also bore Tubal Cain, a smith of all kinds of tools in bronze and iron. And the sister of Tubal Cain was Nahama. And Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Silla, hear my voice, wives of Lamech, listen to my words, for I've killed a man for wounding me, even a young man for hurting me. For Cain is avenged sevenfold, and Lamech 77-fold. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son and called his name Sheth. For Elohim has appointed me another seed instead of Habel, because Cain had slain him. And Sheth to him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. And then it was begun to call on the name of Yahweh.
Then it was begun to call on the name of you.
I've heard several things about that verse, and that there is some opinions that that was not a positive thing. It was more that it could be they began to curse the name of Yahweh. I'm just not sure, but I've been aware that there could be another definition, as it were, for that, or another.
Yeah, well, it also struck me that maybe, maybe, with the sin of Adam, Yahuwah has more or less removed himself.
Yes, drawn back.
And so they weren't necessarily attempting to call upon Yahuwah, but it seemed like
prior to that.
It seemed like Abel must have been. Abel seemed to follow instructions, so I just don't know.
Yeah.
Anything else in chapter 4?
I found it very interesting that Yahuwah warned Cain, which is, we know it as Cain, but Cain, he warned him that he was heading into trouble. And I noticed that Yahuwah told him and warned him. It says in verse 7, if you do well, is there not acceptance? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desire is for you, but you should master it. Immediately after the warning, Cain tells Abel, let's go into the field. So it's like it bounced off the wall. The warning Yahweh gave him meant nothing. It didn't have an effect at all. And I think many times I've looked back on my life and I've seen where he tried to warn me about something and I didn't take it seriously. Another way I've seen in the scriptures, where it says they esteemed lightly. The word was esteemed lightly. It didn't value it. They did not value it. And it appears to me that, well, obviously, Cain did not value the warning from Yahweh. And he didn't even inquire. He didn't even say, well, what do I do? How do I master this? It didn't seem like there was any response from Cain to the warning that Yahweh was providing.
Good. Also, this is striking me because I've been spending some time in Romans here, and part of the description in Romans was as Paul's trying to describe, why then the Torah? Why the Torah? And then in Romans, we get in all of our translations there capitalizing and not capitalizing Torah. So when we read the Torah, we think of the law of Moses which was never the law of Moses. It was always the law of Yahweh handed down to the Israelites through the mediator, Moses. But that is what we call the Torah the Torah with a capital T. And I think when we're reading the letters and they're translating it, sometimes they're telling us big T as in the Torah versus little t, which is just Torah, which is just instruction. Doesn't have to be the Torah. That does not have to be part of the Torah that we see in the law of Moses. It could be Torah as an instruction. And I couch all that. I say all that because in the description from Paul to the Romans, if I'm remembering it correctly, he's trying to describe why then the Torah, and he's explaining how the law gives opportunity for sin. Torah gives opportunity for sin. And we always think of, or we keep reading it as the law and the capital T Torah, but in truth, Torah gives opportunity for sin. Torah, any command of Yahweh, because that's what happened with Adam. Had the instruction not come, if there had been no Torah, no instruction, there would have been no sin. If he hadn't said, "Don't go eat of the tree of the apple of the fruit of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil," there would have been no sin. But the command came, the instruction came, and sin took opportunity to cause sin in fleshly man. Well, that's kind of what you just read here too, in that the command. What did you just read here in 6 and or 7? If you do well, is there not acceptance? And if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door, and its desires therefore you, but you should master it. And where did you just read? Did I miss it? We were just reading where he gave them a command just before that. It was what did you just say? You were just sharing it. That they took it as lightly.
Where he just said, if you do well, is there not
It's
acceptance?
the exact same scripture.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the command
is to do well, to master it.
Well, and they were told, they obviously were told, they were given instruction, they were given Torah how to do it. And that's why, I don't see it here, but in other places, somewhere else I've read that one of the reasons that, I've heard so many teachings on this, and, Cain was field crop, right? He was a
It was
growth.
like Abraham. It said he had, oh, I'm sorry, never mind.
And then Abel brought the meat, right? Or was it vice versa?
No, you're right. You're right. Cain was a tiller of the ground, and Havel was a keeper of sheep.
Well, I've heard it taught that, the idea had to do with what they were bringing, but it never was. It was always in the spirit in which they bring it, but it wasn't always just in the spirit with which they brought it. I've heard some teaching that I tend to embrace, and that is they were given instruction. They were given Torah. This is how you do it. Just like the Israelites were given instruction how they approach Yahweh in the temple. They were given instruction how everybody, if you want to approach Yahweh, here's how you do it. Here are the ways you do it. Here, he gives them instructions. And if you want to be accepted, you follow the instructions. If you esteem it lightly, like you were just sharing, he's not going to honor he didn't curse Cain. He didn't say, Cain, I don't receive your stuff. You are judged and you are going to die. No, he didn't say that. He just preferred Abel's because Abel apparently followed instructions. Cain did not. It was Cain who then took the next step and killed Abel out of jealousy. But the essence of it all is this idea, when we read in Romans that the Torah, without the Torah, sin would have, the command came, the Torah came so that sin could take its place and be identified as sin. But it isn't the Torah that came and made sin manifest itself. It was Torah. I'm saying that, but I'm offering it up. I think it's Torah. It's all commands. All commands give opportunity for our flesh to rebel,
But
and go into sin. Sin, where sin finds its place. It's crouching at the door. Go ahead.
Well, Paul says, if not in that scripture reference you're giving, but in something very similar, without the law, there is no transgression.
It's all the same.
Without
It's the same concept, but they say it gets oftentimes in the institution of church doctrines and teaching that they say that's the law. The law of Moses, it started 3,000 years later with the law that is now ideally, according to the institution, not
saying it's been abrogated.
Yeah, the law of Moses, when in truth, that's I don't think that's what Paul is saying. Paul is saying law came, Torah came, instruction came, all the way back to the beginning to demonstrate that without, say that again, what was the passage?
Without the law, there is no transgression.
So without Torah, not the law as in the
without
Torah of
Torah.
Moses, without instruction, without Torah, all the way back to Adam, there is no.
Yeah.
And,
Um,
and one more quick thing in Romans, there's also, just this idea that, as he's trying to describe that sin existed from Adam forward. It didn't start with the law of Moshe. It started from Adam forward. And here we go with the examples. Here, sin was present in the world because Torah existed, and transgressing Torah existed clear back at the beginning. I'm sorry.
this is kind of a conclusion that has been coming to me as we've been reading, and that is that it says in Yahushua said, Matthew 6:33, that seek ye first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness, and all of these things shall be added unto you. And I've heard it defined, righteousness, as Yahweh's ways of being and doing right. And conclusion I'm coming to is every command Yahweh gave is in context of what he's thinking, is a direct reflection of the way he thinks and the way he acts. And that is what he wants his children to emulate. Whatever he has said to do or not do, which is maybe considered the law, but it's instructions that represents what he ultimately has in his heart for men and people, female men and male men, to operate in and to reflect. And I was thinking one more thing, and then I'll stop. So I've been seeing this in both Second Esdras and in the testimony of Joseph, the testimony of Joseph. Self-control is mentioned repeatedly, particularly in the Testament of Joseph, and then often in Second Esdras. I mean, the point is huge in Second Esdras. One of the scriptures that was left outside of the canon we were handed. But anyway, so any kind of sin or temptation we're confronted with ultimately requires a restraint against, whether it's a restraint to not do something or telling your flesh, no, I'm gonna do that. It's a self-control. It's self-control in essence. And I've overlooked how important that particular fruit of the Spirit is in my life. But I'm learning.
And I'll say one more thing before we welcome Joey. With respect to this discussion that's taking place in modern day church about the Torah and how we as the assembly, as the church, are to respond to Torah. And we keep thinking that, the church does embrace Torah, but they embrace Torah instruction as it's given through the Messiah, which is Yahushua, in the new writings only, but they are not.
They've abrogated the previous.
The conversation, when they think about Torah in the old writings, they think of the Torah. And the Torah is part of his Torah, but the Torah is really just part of his Torah. This whole concept of Torah, as Shiloh Qahal is trying to do, is Torah at all Torah, from the beginning to the end, inclusive of the Torah of Moshe, because it represents his ways. and the practices that will be coming back that we need to be learning and sharing, and now learning how to share them now. So.
Let me add one quick thing. So people get upset thinking that, well, I can't keep all the Torah. I can't keep it all. Well, and they come up with an idea of 613 laws. I've heard that many times, that the institution of the church says 613 laws. Well, I don't believe that the 613 may necessarily be the all be what Yahuwah told man. I'm wondering if some of those are what man has also added to. But even if they are all of Yahweh's instructions, Yahushua could not have kept them all. He perfectly fulfilled the Torah, the instructions, but there's no way for him to keep every single one of them because he's not a woman. There are certain laws. There's certain exactly. He was not in his when he came the first time. He was not a Levitical priest, and he was not a woman. So he fulfilled what was applicable to him in his walk. And so that's helped me just realizing, I'm only responsible for those things that would apply to me. I don't have to worry about all the other ones because that doesn't even apply to me. We're not in Israel. We're not in the land, and we're not in Jerusalem. So those don't apply to me. Something that would have to do with the temple don't apply to me.
Hi, Joe and Haley.
Hi, Joe and Haley.
We did advance chapter 4 of Genesis, and I don't know if you guys have. Yeah, we're doing chapters 4 through 7 here, so we just finished that, and we're heading on to chapter 5. But Terry just shared something that I would like to share in this meeting and in our online meeting, and that is, you might hear us trying to utilize the term institution or institution of church. And the reason that we're trying to do that, and we may evolve those words, we don't really know, but we're trying to distinguish the church from the teachings of the church and the institutional teachings of the church, because there are doctrines that are being handed down. First of all, the church is just us. It's the assembly of believers. It's the church. But then we have the institution of church, which is the whole organizational piece of churchianity that comes down to us from the very beginning, and we're calling that institutional church. And then there are, there are just doctrines of the church that don't necessarily come from the institution, but they are being taught in the church because of the teachings of the church. So if you hear us saying institution, it's just simply because we do not, if it sounds like we're arguing with the church, we are probably going to be arguing with lots of the doctrines of the church, but we're not anti-church. We are the church. So that's why you might hear us say institution, only because we're not trying to offend the church, the people, those of us who are trying to learn the ways. We need to be able to differentiate what the church has been teaching versus what we're seeing in scriptures without offending people. So anything else, Terry?
That's fine.
All right.
Oh, well, let me go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that would have bothered me long ago, I probably was very upset about it, and I've started to understand things better. But when it said that, which one was it that got Lamech had 2 wives? That's the first where we see
right.
polygamy,
Okay.
more than one wife. Well, in the garden, when Yahuwah put Adam and Eve together, he said the 2 shall become one.
Not the 3.
Not the 3,
Not the
not the 4, not any more than 2. And actually, just by virtue of
that's the Torah, that's the command.
That was the first
thing beyond that is, even if he tolerates it, it isn't his best. It isn't what he.
Well, he says elsewhere, he tolerated a lot of stuff, and he said, I remained silent. And because I didn't say anything, you thought I was just like you.
Yeah, I think that's Isaiah. I think I just read that this morning.
You think I'm just like you because I don't say anything and I don't correct you on every single thing, but he did not want anything other than one man, one woman. And because 3 can't be one only two can be one. So I just want any girl or woman that hears that read scriptures where there's more than one woman and thinking that's okay. And I know there's some sects of believers out there that actually do think, hey, that is part of the Torah and we're going to participate in that particular belief. It is, I believe wholly that it is wrong and it is not his way of being and doing right. It is not what Yahweh ever intended because it has caused such great pain. Anything that causes pain, he's not wanted anything like that for his people. So that I just wanted that to, that's it.
Good. Uh, we, uh, we are recording this on chapter 5.
Did you want to
You
read
want to
it?
read or you want?
I can read.
Okay.
This is the book of the genealogy of Adam. In the day that Elohim created man, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. Male and female he created them, and he brought them and called their name Adam in the day that they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and brought forth a son in his own likeness after his image, and called his name Sheth. And after he brought forth Sheth, the days of Adam were 800 years, and he brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Sheth lived 105 years, and he brought forth Enosh. And after he brought forth Enosh, Sheth lived 807 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Sheth were 912 years, and he died. And Enosh lived 90 years, and brought forth Canaan. After he brought forth Canaan, Enosh lived 815 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. And Canaan lived 70 years, and brought forth Mahalalel. After he brought forth him, Canaan lived 840 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. And he lived 65 years, and brought forth Yared. And after he brought forth Yared, he lived 830 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of him were 895 years, and he died. And Yared lived 162 years, and brought forth Hanok.
That's
Enoch, the Enoch that walked with Yahweh and was no more. He's
And-
the Hebrews 11 Hall of Famer.
and this is Yared in the days of Yared. Okay.
And after he brought forth Hanok, Yared lived 800 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Yared were 962 years, and he died. And Hanok lived 65 years, and brought forth Methuselah. After he brought forth Methuselah, Hanok walked with Elohim 300 years, and brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Hanok were 365 years. Hanok walked with Elohim, then he was no more, for Elohim took him. And Methuselah lived 187 years, and brought forth Lamech. After he brought forth Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years, brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Methuselah were 969 years, and he died. And Lamech lived 182 years, and brought forth a son. He called his name Noah, saying, This one comforts us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh has cursed. And after he brought forth Noah, Lamech lived 595 years, brought forth sons and daughters. So all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah brought forth Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
All right. We got anything for that chapter?
I regret reading it.
Regret reading it?
Well, I find it interesting that Methuselah actually that's the one that was alive until the ark. Actually, did he go on the ark? I'm not positive.
No.
He didn't go on the ark, but his name actually meant, and then the end will come.
Okay.
The name is actually the end is coming.
Okay. It did mention, I'll just say it comes up in other places in other ways, but Adam died at 930 years. So he In many other places, it's discussed that a day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years as a day in the time of Yahweh. So the command was that if you eat of this, of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, in that same day you'll surely die. Well, he died in that first 1,000 years, which is the first day. Yahweh.
Yeah.
So was the earth created in 7,000 years?
No, I guess I don't know. I never really thought about it that way. I wouldn't think so. I I suppose I understand why you're asking me,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure how to tie those two things together. Probably wouldn't try.
What, you weren't there?
I wasn't there. Some days I feel like I could have been. Anything else to discuss here?
Nobody made it to 1,000 years.
Nobody.
And 69 was the most. That was the Methuselah.
Well, I will say, staying with your question, well, I think, I mean, it's possible that it took 7,000 years to create the earth. I just don't think so. I think those were literal days. And here they don't, in Genesis, it doesn't say, doesn't tie the day to 1,000 years being the same, but is it Jubilees that does? I think it's Jubilees that does it, makes it very clear. And if not Jubilees, there are other extra writings that make it very clear. And it's the reference from which Peter says, you know, for the Lord, a day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as a day in his writings. But also when we think in terms of the 7 days of creation then played out in the 7 years, you know, basically we're talking about 7 days of the creation here, that this creation will last for 7 days, but expanded through 7,000 years. That, you know, once again, back to the day is 1,000 years, 1,000 years is a day. And according to what we see, we're coming to the end of the 86th day and the beginning of the 7th day, which ideally would then be the Sabbath rest. And most people think of as the millennial period, that 1,000-year, that last day in this age. Okay.
One real quick point is Lamech. Lamech, he said when Noah came into their family, the father said of this one comforts us concerning our work and the toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh has cursed. And I do find in the scriptures that there are many times where a statement is made that one of the people said. Yes, it is true. They said it. Is it true, though, that that is Yahweh's thought?
Well, his words.
Right.
It represents what he's trying to message.
And the other, and it's because it actually said the ground, when Adam and Eve sinned, it says the ground is cursed because of you. Just the very act of that treasonous act, the curse came into the world. It didn't say specifically Yahweh cursed them. That is the curse, is the fall of man. The curse that followed was the consequence of his rebellion. It didn't say Yahweh did anything. Man had dominion. He'd given man dominion prior to the fall. So if he chose to be rebellious and commit treason against Yahweh, it would follow that there's, okay, you're going to be blessed if you follow me, but if you don't, the curse awaits. So please choose life, choose to follow, choose to obey. And then also it said with Cain and Abel, that the ground, it says, now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the ground, it shall no longer yield its strength to you. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. It doesn't say Yahweh cursed the ground. It said because the blood was shed upon the ground, it's cursed. So there's been a lot of subject. There used to be a document that was talking about how important it is to know if something was an accusative or if it was just a permissive. Yahweh allowed versus Yahweh actually did it. And so I'm just questioning this. I just don't. I don't really trust Lamech, first of all, because he already is off. You can see he's off from the right path of Yahweh. So whether or not Yahweh cursed the ground, I'm just saying I take what is that when you say that? I take
Exception.
exception. I don't know that that is the truth, or it's just the truth that Lamech thought that Yahweh cursed the earth.
Good. Haley, you want to? No?
I think this next one's easier.
I'll let Joe read the next one since it's easy. I mean, did you want to read the next one? It's the good one. It's a really good one.
Is it?
It's Noah.
And it came to be when men began to increase on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them, that the son of Elohim saw the daughters of men, that they were good, and they took wives for themselves of all whom they chose. Yahweh said, My Ruach shall not strike with mankind forever in his going astray. His flesh, and his days shall be 120 years. Nephilim were on the earth, and in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of Elohim came in to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, the men of name. And Yahweh said to the wickedness of men, and Yahweh saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And Yahweh was sorry that he had made man on the earth. He was grieved in his heart. And Yahweh said, I am going to wipe off man, whom I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, creeping creature, and the birds of the Shamayim, for I am sorry that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of Yahweh. This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with Elohim, and Noah brought forth 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence. And Elohim looked upon the earth and saw that it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted their way on the earth. And Elohim said to Noah, The end of all flesh has come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them. And see, I am going to destroy them from the earth. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Make rooms in the ark, and cover it inside and outside with tar. And this is how you are to make it. The length of the ark is 300 amah, its width 50 amah, and its height 30 amah. Make a window for the ark and complete it to an amah from above, and put the door of the ark in its side. Make it lower, second, and third decks. Make it with lower, second, and third decks. And see, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life from under the Shamayim. All that is on the earth is to die. And I shall establish my covenant with you, and you shall come into the ark, you and your sons and your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And of all the living creatures of all flesh, 2 of each you are to bring into the ark, to keep them alive with you, a male and a female, of the birds after their kind, and of the cattle after their kind, and of all creeping creatures of the earth after their kind. 2 of each are to come to you, to keep them alive. As for you, take of all the food that is eaten and gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. And Noah did according to all that Elohim commanded him, so he did.
This is such a full chapter.
Full?
I would just suggest anybody that's listening that if you want to know a lot more detail about when the Nephilim came to be on the earth after the Watchers came, to go to Enoch 1, the first book of Enoch, not Enoch 2, not Enoch 3, but the first book of Enoch. Great detail is given on what happened when the Watchers came down and with the human wives produced, human women produced the Nephilim, which means to fall, fallen ones. There's also some references in Second Esdras about it. And it shows why it was so horrific that he had to make that decision to kill them all.
Yeah, because the corruption of the earth was beyond anything that we've seen even today.
Mm-hmm.
And also during this time, they don't really talk about it here, but during this time is when we see all of these, we were talking about last week, the monolithic creations, the things that, I was just watching a show the other night again, where huge stones built into the side of a wall or a mountain in Lebanon.
Over 1,000 ton.
Just can't be done by normal technology and normal people. So yeah, there's a lot more information about this time period than what we're going to see in Genesis. A lot more information. And if anybody's curious, an amma is about the length of a cubit, which is about the length from the elbow to the arm to the tip of the hand, which is about 18 inches. So that makes that arc about 450 feet long and 75 feet wide.
Imagine all the beasts of the coming in and being able to fit on the ark.
Yeah, because it's really not that big. Think about, well, I guess 450 feet is pretty long, isn't it? So it's really long and narrow because 75 feet,
Is it 450 by what, Jim?
450 by 75, because it was 300 amma, should be roughly 450 feet, 50 amma wide, which would be roughly 75. I guess that's bigger than I was thinking, because I think about it, that probably carries you clear over to that church over there. If not all the way to the church, you'd be roughly close. And this room is not 75 feet wide, so I guess it's bigger than I was. Pretty good size.
Yeah, but there's a lot of animals out there.
Yeah. I had somebody, because everybody imagines how everything, because there are so many. I've postulated back years ago that just because there was a certain number of animals that came on the ark, that doesn't mean that animals and creatures didn't continue to be created after. That there weren't new animals, new creatures, new things that were created. I don't know. But also I heard somebody talk about how they might have been young ones.
Yeah,
Smaller because you're young, because big elephants and
The other thing is the earth was corrupted after Adam, and so because he actually says in Genesis 1 that he was finished. So I know that there's some evolutionary talk with all the different species, but I contend, what if that part of the curse that happened in the earth and or what the Nephilim did with the hybridization of everything, if the corruption caused this proliferation of species, where there's, instead of just one cattle, there's how many different kinds of cattle now. But it says that creation was finished at day 6 before the Shabbat on the 7th day. So
and I have no intention to argue with any of that, but when we say creation was finished, it's like so many things in scriptures, things I'm working through right now as I'm reading some of Paul's writings. To say it's finished meant that he was finished with his activity. It doesn't necessarily have to suggest that there is no more creation ever again. It's just that what he was doing at that moment, he finished. I don't know that it has to mean that he never, that he didn't continue to create on the earth. I mean, I've heard, we've talked, and you've shared that with me before. I'd forgotten about it, but you've shared that with me before.
I was even thinking concerning the solar system, the universe. From the Big Bang Theory comes it's ever expanding. But Yahweh's word says day 6, he was finished with the heavens and the earth. So how can it be ever expanding if he said it's finished?
Yeah. Well, again, you could you could. Same conversation I just had about finishing. But we have other reasons to think it's not really possible or feasible. So, all right, chapter 7. Who wants to read that?
I can't if mom doesn't want to read.
I think we already did 3 chapters.
We're doing the whole
4,
thing.
5,
Oh,
6,
okay.
7.
Oh, okay.
And Yahweh said to Noah, Come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. Of all the clean beasts, take with you 7 pairs, a male and his female, and of the beasts that are unclean, 2, a male and his female, and of birds of the Shamim, 7 pairs, male and female, to keep offspring alive on the face of all the earth. After 7 more days I am sending rain on the earth, 40 days and 40 nights, and shall wipe from the face of the earth all that stand I created. And Noah did according to all that Yahweh commanded him. Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters were on the earth. And Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean beasts and of the beasts that are unclean, and of birds and of all that creep on the earth. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as Elohim had commanded Noah. And it came to be after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of Shamim were opened. And the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that same day Noah and Shem and Ham and Japheth, the sons of Noah, and Noah's wives, and the 3 wives of his sons were with them, went into the ark, they and every living creature after its kind, and every beast after its kind, and after every creeping creature that creeps on the earth after its kind, and every bird after its kind, every bird of every sort. And they went into the ark to Noah, 2 by 2, of all flesh, which is the breath of life. And those going in, male and female of all flesh, went in as Elohim had commanded him, and Yahweh shut him in. And the flood was on the earth 40 days, and the waters increased and lifted up the ark, and it rose high above the earth. And the waters were mighty and greatly increased on the earth, and the ark moved about on the surface of the waters. And the waters were exceedingly mighty on the earth, and all the high mountains under all the Shamim were covered. The waters became mighty, 15 amma upward, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds and cattle and beasts, and every creeping creature that creeps on the earth, and all mankind. All in whose nostrils was breath of the spirit of life, all that was on the dry land died. So he wiped off all that stand, which were on the face of the ground, both man and beast, creeping creature and bird of the Shamim, and they were wiped off from the earth, and only Noah was left, and those with him in the ark. And the waters were mighty on the earth 150 days.
Sorry, everybody. I didn't scroll up in time. I was not sure I'm successfully sharing screens here. So, okay. So, anybody have anything to share with that?
Well, one of the things I noticed at first was Noah was righteous in the eyes of Yahweh. In other words, he was a favored man. He did what Yahweh was pleased with, and it provided protection for him and his family. And I think what a blessing for those 3 women, the daughters of the boys, because they would have been of the world, as it were. And they got, by virtue of getting together with that one of the sons of Noah, provided their safety in that ark of Yahweh.
Yeah, because their righteousness didn't get them there.
No, and actually in Second Esdras, I think, or Jubilees, which one talks about how even the righteousness of the sons was not acceptable. They would not have made it except for the righteousness of Noah. So if it weren't for Noah, it doesn't say about the wife. Maybe she wasn't either, but but Noah himself, his righteousness saved possibly his wife, but certainly saved the sons and those their wives because they would not have been saved otherwise.
Good. I know we're going to be moving off of here, and I think it might address it here. A lot of things run together on me anymore, but Noah lives another 300 years after the flood, and Noah is contemporary with Abraham. Actually, Noah lived
Yes.
long enough to see the birth of Yitzchak. And then, of course, Shem was a contemporary of Abraham too, and was around for quite a bit.
Isaac, Noah, and just so
Did I say
you said you said the right name, but just so anybody that's listening, Isaac.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
Yitzchak.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, Isaac. Yeah, Yitzchak. Um, yeah. So for the birth of Isaac, Noah was around, and so Shem was a contemporary of Abraham and Isaac as well, and that also is contemporary then with Tower of Babel.
Yes.
So Noah is around during the Tower of Babel, and of course through the corruption and the beginning of Babel and all of that. So, anything else? All right. Well, this would be a good time to take a 5-minute break or so. Actually, I'm going to play a song. We'll do that one song.
Sure.
When we
That's a great
finish up the song, we'll come back. Let's see if I can get it pulled back up. All right, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Oh. gonna ask about. So we should have made it then, huh?
Yeah, I think we've made it.
To get the impossible claims to go bad on us. One. You got uh,
For this thing, you don't want it to be directly facing you because you're going to be at that split as it merges the two cameras together in the image. So I just rotate it a little bit so you include it in this camera. Something for you to know.
have you seen it?
Yeah.
Like in the videos?
Yeah, your face is split.
Not all bad.
Well, when someone's trying to focus on what you're saying and they're seeing like a distorted view of you. You've been playing in mud. You've been playing.
Really good song.
Yeah, I've been playing it and playing it and playing it.
Mhm. All right, so we are moving on to the proverb of the day. Oops, I didn't move there.
It'd be the 28th.
Mhm. See if I can get it pulled up. 16. Just a second. There we go, moved it over. Thanks.
Yeah.
You read differently?
No. Uh-uh.
I just have some writings in mine and she's using the bookmark.
Ah, okay, all right.
I don't see the bookmark.
Proverbs,
Oh,
Proverbs 28. Okay, you want to do it?
Sure. Proverbs 28. The wicked shall flee through, sorry. The wicked shall flee, though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Because of transgression of a land, many are its rulers, but by a man of understanding and knowledge, right is maintained. A poor man who oppresses the poor is like a sweeping rain that leaves no food. Those who forsake the Torah praise the wicked. Those who guard the Torah strive with them. Evil men do not understand right ruling, but those who seek Yahweh understand all. Better is the poor who walks in his integrity than one perverse in his ways who is rich. He who watches over the Torah is a discerning son, but a companion of gluttons shames his father. He who increases his possession possessions by interest and profit gathers it for him who shows favor to the poor. He who turns away his ear from hearing the Torah, even his prayer is an abomination. He who causes the straight to go astray in an evil way falls into his own pit. But the perfect inherit the good. A rich man is wise in his own eyes, but the poor who has understanding searches him out. When the righteous exalt, there's great comeliness, but when the wicked arise, a man is searched for. He who hides his transgressions does not prosper, but he who confesses and forsakes them finds compassion. Baruch, or blessed, is the man who always reveres, but he who hardens his heart falls into evil. A roaring lion and a charging bear is a wicked ruler over poor people. A leader who lacks understanding is a great oppressor. But the hater of greed prolongs his days. A man oppressed by blood guilt flees into a pit. Let no one help him. He who walks blamelessly is saved, but the perverted of ways falls at once. He who tills his land is satisfied with bread, but he who pursues vanities is filled with poverty. A man of truth has many blessings, or barakat, but one in a hurry to be rich does not go unpunished. To show partiality is not good, because for a piece of bread a man would transgress. A man with an evil eye runs after wealth and does not know that poverty awaits him. He who reproves a man finds more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue. He who robs his father or mother and says, "It is no transgression," he's a companion to a destroyer. He who is greedy stirs up strife, but he who trusts in Yahweh prospers. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely is delivered. He who gives to the poor does not lack, but he who hides his eyes has many curses. When the wicked rise up, men hide themselves, but when they perish, the righteous increase. So the righteous have an opportunity to increase when the wicked perish.
It's good stuff, you know. Well, I mean, help us incorporate this into our life. It's kind of wisdom and
One theme that is running throughout is addressing poor, rich. He's bringing those subjects up. But I will say that it's very evident he didn't say a poor man is good and a rich man is bad. He said, if you're poor, this is probably going to happen to you. And if you're poor, it's better that you still walk right, even if you're poor. If you're rich, don't do this. Don't oppress the poor. Don't. But he didn't say being rich is bad. He just, because Abraham was very rich. Yahweh said, Abraham, I'll make your name great. I'll make you great. And a couple chapters later, and Abraham was very rich, exceeding rich. It's what does that man with resources do in his life, and what does he do with those resources? Is he helping? Is he hurting? Is he oppressing? Is he greedy? You can be poor and be greedy and covetous. You can be rich and be greedy and covetous. It's really all in your attitude and in your manner of life, the way you think.
very good too.
Anything stand out to you guys?
Anything else? It all stands out. It's just really, really just may we all walk in this. I wish Solomon could have continued to walk in all of this wisdom. What does stand out, one thing is verse 24, he who robs his father and mother. It says it's no transgression.
I thought he'd say this.
You
But
better
the
not be
companion
thinking,
is the destroyer, right?
right?
Yeah, Dad's your companion, huh?
Uh-oh.
No, I'm a companion to a destroyer.
This is really full again. Just the word's always is so full. But one thing I noticed is in verse 9, he who turns away his ear. from hearing the Torah or hearing instruction, hearing the voice of Yahweh, even his prayer, and is an abomination. Abomination, I just studied that out this morning. It is the worst of the worst. It is detestable. It is disgusting. It's reprehensible. It's loathsome. And it says in Psalms that the righteous cry out and Yahweh hears. And in the second writings, in the newer writings, if we ask anything according to to Yahweh's will, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us and all that we ask, we know that we can have, or we have the petition which we have asked of Him. So those that are listening and those that are trying to be obedient, Yahweh's ear is tuned into them, waiting. Those who don't care about Him or His ways, they can cry out, but if they've had a life of rebellion and they're really not, Yahweh knows their heart. We can't know their heart, but Yahweh knows. If they're just crying out because they're desperate, He's going to say, I don't think so.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say 24 through 5. Those who forsake the Torah praise the wicked. Those who guard the Torah strive with them. Evil men do not understand right ruling, but those who seek Yahweh understand all. I think that's just becoming more increasingly evident in everything I'm watching and looking at in the current state of the world.
Let me read that with that concept in mind. Those who forsake the Torah praise the wicked. Yeah. Okay.
Because it's the modern day Christians who are their judgment is off because they're not following the Torah.
That segues very well with what I was going to comment on it, because I was going back to, where was it? Where we're at, Terry? We're at 9. He who turns his ear from hearing the Torah. I was just going to tie it back into some of what we were talking about earlier, and that is we can talk about the Torah. First of all, Proverbs is Old Covenant writings. The church believes that Old Covenant writings are for the Old Covenant people, which would be Israel. So while the church, and again, no, we are church, that's not what we're saying. Church teaching, the institution, the teachings of the church are such that they're suggesting that everything Old Covenant or old writings is Old Covenant and not necessarily for the church today, even though the church embraces and wants to read Proverbs and the wisdom of Proverbs and Psalms and Isaiah and things of that nature. But the old writings continue to push us back to the Torah. And in our conversation earlier today, the Torah, they've got it capitalized here in verse 7. Did they capitalize it up here in 4? I think they did, right? Torah. So when they're capitalizing it in Torah, they're leading us to think the Torah of Moshe, the law of Moses, according to the church. But if they had not capitalized that capital T or that T and just left it Torah, it would just simply be the instructions of Yahweh. We wouldn't necessarily think it's limited to the law of Moses. We would understand it to be the Torah of Yahweh from Adam to
Abraham.
forever. So even though it says he who watches over the Torah, people might think that is the law of Moses. And it could be. And if that's the instruction to every believer who might be watching, then you need to be paying attention to the Torah too. But if we were just talking about the Torah as like in lowercase t, which is any instruction of Yahweh, then he who watches over the instructions of Yahweh is discerning. Those who forsake the instructions of Yahweh praise the wicked. Those who guard the instructions of Yahweh strive with them. So in the context of what the conversation that's happening everywhere amongst, if not the church at large, it's certainly in certain segments of the church, there just is more and more evidence that we are called to be hearing the Torah, not just the Torah at large, but even the Torah of Moshe. We're just being called back to it. I just don't know how. When you really start paying attention, I don't know how you can miss that we're being called back to Torah. And I'll just say something before we move on. Terry and I were talking about this week, that we have the promises to Abraham, the promises for what? Going to be a great nation, the promised land. I think resurrection, although I don't remember it being spoken of specifically in there. But those promises precede the law of Moses and the nation. But after 400, is it 400 years?
430, exactly.
It's well, that's
400
that's not from the time of Abraham. That's from the time. That's how long they were in Egypt. Because they were uh, Abraham. Abraham goes back farther than that. Probably almost 1,000 years. Um, but the promises were made to him. But by the time the covenant was made with Israel, they had grown into a nation. This is around the year 1,000 BC. Is it 1,014? I have to do the math. It doesn't really matter. But they had grown into a nation, and at the time the covenant was made with them at Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai, and these laws and this covenant was given, that's when we see the law of Moshe given. And then we have this period of time where there's just no question that, and let me also comment that the law that was given to Moshe, it's very clear, it's not Moshe's law, it's the law of heaven, it's the law of Yahuwah that is given through messengers, it's given to Moshe, and it's not a law for the Israeli people, it is the law of heaven. So basically what's happened is the Torah has come down to Israel so that Israel can share in the ways and the laws and the Torah that's taking place in the heavens, the Shemayim right now. So they start embracing and they become the people of Yahweh, different, separate, Kodash from all the peoples of the world. And their commands were to follow him and to obey him diligently. And had they done that, they would have been blessed, but they didn't. They fell apart, and it only took a few hundred years before Israel, before they split, and then a couple 100 years after that, and Israel's dispersed into the world. And then we have a little more time with Yehuda in the south. But my point of all of that would be that we had the nation of Israel right up to the time, actually 400 years before Messiah, they had actually lost their sovereignty. The nation of Israel had lost their sovereignty to Babylon. Actually, Israel first to Ashur or Assyria, and then Judah to Babylon. So they lost their sovereignty, and the nation of Israel did not cease to exist, but they ceased to be sovereign. They were not sovereign of their own land or their own situation. And then we have another 400 years, and we have Messiah coming on the scene. And then within 100 years of that, we have, 72 years of that, doing rough the math. Then all of Israel is completely dispersed. The 10 tribes have already been dispersed, and now the southern tribes are also dispersed, and they're gone. And that's the condition we're in now. This is the word going out to the Gentiles, because what we're living in and have been for 2,000 years now is in the time of dispersion, which has been a little bit confusing, so that we cannot operate in the Torah as we would have seen it done as a nation. Because when they had the nation, they had, first of all, they were in the land, so they could gather together in Jerusalem for the appointed feast, and they had the temple, the Mishkan, the tabernacle, and so they could do all the priestly things. So they were operating as a nation, a sovereign nation. Well, the time has come since the dispersion that we cannot operate as a sovereign nation because Israel's been dispersed throughout the whole world. So the things that are part of the Torah related to the temple and them as a nation and how they should act as a nation, well, those things are not something we can be accomplishing today. But that's understood. That's why we can't gather in Jerusalem every year for the 3 appointed feasts. And it's also part of the reason why the church would say, well, Israel's gone. And so we're not called to these national laws and this national Torah of Moshe. But what I think the church has failed to remember or learn or know, probably in our day, we just didn't know. Most of us just didn't know. It's not been taught. But the promise is Israel is coming back together. Israel is dispersed right now, but this is the promise that he will gather them back together. So there's a time coming when all of the people who are going to be identified as Israel, which would be us who have joined, even if we're Gentiles, we've joined them, we're all going to be gathered back into the land, literally the land of Israel, not figuratively as a nation dispersed. No, we're going to be gathered back into the land. And when we are gathered back into the land, guess what's going to be the law of the land? We're returning to the Torah. We're going to have the temple again. We're going to have temple ritual ceremonies. We won't need atonement anymore because Yahushua is taking care of that. But all of these things are coming back. So we have this period of time between the national state of Israel, with the Torah being the evident law, and then we have this returning time of Israel into a nation with the Torah being the evident law. But what we have in the sandwiched in between is 2,000 years of disbursement. And this is what has, I think, confused so many people. The church can understand the moral laws of the Torah, but the moment you start talking about the Torah, they start saying, what are you going to do? You're going to gather then? You're going to start sacrificing animals again? And all the things that they're talking about, because they refer back to the way it was when we had national, we're all gathered in the land. But that's really not the point. The Torah, as we turn our attention back to the Torah, we are called in the midst of this time to begin to learn his ways, because the Torah represented, it shows his ways. Those appointed times that we've lost, these are his ways. These are his appointed times. And we've lost it, but in the first national Israel, they were keeping him. In the second national Israel, they're going to keep him. We should be learning how to do this now. This is what I think in this season, in preparation for, I think, the return, in my opinion, we're being called back to begin paying attention and start restudying his ways and to learn his ways. Not just the moral laws that the church can easily embrace, but the ceremonial laws. Just like keeping the Sabbath, of course, because I think that's a critical law that the church has lost, thanks to the institution and the teachings and the leadership of the church. But all of the appointed times, we need to begin to learn and embrace them and start to learn what they are and practice them in preparation, because that's what we're going to be doing when the time comes. And there are probably certain, and I think the church also embraces most of the civic and social aspects of the law. You don't treat somebody wrongly. You don't steal something.
The second one.
But also just, they're also intertwined, moral, civic, and social. I think the church gets that, but they are struggling with the national laws that would be related to the gathering, and the national and the ceremonial laws that are part of what Israel was called to do, because they are shadows of what is taking place in the heavens. They were a shadow even when they were being practiced at first. They're a shadow now, and but when it comes back, when it comes down the second time, when we're gathered, they'll no longer be shadows. Nothing's a shadow. We're going to be actually celebrating and doing it in the midst of Yahushua, in the midst of Elohim.
Recently, I'd heard a message. I didn't listen to the message because of the title. I understood what the title meant. It was called Shadow Huggers. And he is strenuously against people that are trying to observe the instructions from the first writings. And the modern writings do line up with, or many of the modern writings, most of them do line up with that it was faded away. It has faded away, but it was a shadow of things to come.
And it's over.
It's
obsolete.
It's been abrogated because of Messiah. But when the translation gets corrected and it's fixed, not according to a person's translation, it actually says it's a shadow of the coming things. It's a shadow of the things to come. It's a shadow of what's happening up in heaven.
I just read that. Just read that. Yeah, good.
And while you were talking, I was thinking because one of the things that people they get vehement about it, that you're getting legal. I am kind of waiting for some of the people that know me when they realize that I've what we're doing now, where we're proceeding now. I'm waiting for the mocking and the disdain because I know it's coming. And I'm trying to prepare myself for that because I can't care. I just can't care. The first command. So what I think, if I can sum up what you're saying in what the main or the believers in this day are trying to do, the sincere ones, they're trying to, how do I treat my neighbor? How do I treat people? How do I think properly
How do I
with
honor my spouse?
right, that type of thing. But that's the second commandment, second greatest, according to Jesus, according to Yeshua. What's the first commandment? The first and the greatest, explicitly, love Yahweh with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second, love your neighbor as yourself. I truly believe that sincere believers are endeavoring to do all that they can do to treat their neighbor well. And they would believe that they're loving Yahweh with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. But if you don't look into his ways, which he lined out through the first writings. I mean, the first writings are huge compared to the small amount of writings in the second, in the newer ones. So if the first and the greatest is love Yahweh with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, then that's I was awakened to. What then does he find is loving him? And so that's when I started realizing, what does loving him mean? So that's been actually
He
kind of
finds it
the
everywhere.
the summation of my journey is since we were awakened to, we've been missing this. What does it mean to love you? What reflects in loving you properly? And I've had to undo a lot of stuff, and I've had to add a lot of stuff because it's revealing what is loving him and what is not loving him. It says if we don't care about the Sabbath, that is not loving him. He says it is vehemently stated through his word. If you don't you've profaned the Sabbath. And then he even goes so far as to say in another verse, you've forsaken yourselves. Because
This
it
is what
hurts
we
you.
touched on
It hurts
earlier,
me to
talking
not
about
think.
Cain and Abel, because that's what I was saying, and it's what you're saying, is that good, well-meaning Christians are trying to love the Lord. They would say the Lord their God, but they're trying to love Yahweh with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. But they're doing so by force of will and in ignorance because well, I'm going to say that they've been really led to remain ignorant of what is really taught, because Yahuwah teaches us what it means to love him. He teaches us in these old writings. To love him is the command, that it's the covenant he made with Israel. Here are my ways. Keep them, follow them, diligently obey them. That's how you demonstrate that you love me and follow me. Going back to our discussion with Cain and Abel, to 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 say that you love somebody but not really care about what they've communicated to you represents how they want you to do and be, to show love, to fail to show the esteem we were talking about earlier, is pretty much what we just witnessed happening in Cain and Abel's story. Cain comes with apparent failure to esteem the instructions of Yahweh. So he did not demonstrate love for Yahweh, because while he may have come with his own understanding of what he's going to bring and his own definition, but he didn't follow the instructions.
Maybe tossed it down. It just
Yahweh told them they had instructions. Elsewhere, we find that they had instructions. They had Torah. And if you want to demonstrate your love for Yahweh, you must follow his commands. It's evident everywhere. Unfortunately, in the circles today in Christianity, because of how we've been led to believe, we are redefining and defining in our own image, really, what it means to love Yahweh. If I just give him this or do that with things you didn't ask for. I mean, how many times does he say it over and over in scripture? You're giving me stuff. I didn't ask for this. You didn't. You give it, none of what you're bringing to me is what I want or need or.
In addition, not only did he say, well, he also said that they were doing the things he asked them to do, but they were doing all the other things. So he said, your Sabbaths, your feasts, your special, they don't mean anything to me. I don't want anything that they were actually, they became abominable to him because they were doing all the other things that say they were, well, like Solomon, he was probably still going and sacrifice or having the proper sacrifices, maybe doing what Yahweh said, like for the regulations, but he was also building temples, building temples for his for to Ashereth, and building the temples to the demonic deities, because you can say pagan, but they're demonic. They're demonic in nature. It's not just a false god. It's demonic. And so he was doing both.
The whole discussion we've had just with Christmas having come and gone, Jesus is the reason for the season, and all the things that everybody wants to do and put out there as evidence that see how we worship God, see how we care about, we are big into Jesus. We're and so they get serious about this celebration of Jesus through the Christmas season, but they're oblivious to the fact that they were never instructed to do that, and the very things they're doing, they don't even understand how much it is not. It's anti what he wants to see done. So the point of it would be that here are people who think they're loving Yahweh by observing Christmas in the right spirit, but there's no way to get to loving Yahweh through Christmas. And it's just an example of somebody doing it, trying to do it their own way, when the instructions have been given to us. If you really want to, and we're talking like, just, we're learning this.
Constantly.
50,
60 years, say 60
years in ignorance. And I just wish it had never been so. But I think it's just the way, it's the season, it's the time we're approaching it. Knowledge is increasing, and it's becoming, we're just now joining people who had been doing it for a decade or two, and others will follow us behind us, not necessarily follow us, but behind us.
And then just one little thing that Steve Martin had put a meme up that was showing one guy behind a fence and like a guardrail over a cliff. There's a cliff and the fence is right there. And the one guy is standing safely behind the fence, the guardrail. And the other guy's going, I'm not subject to that law. And he's jumping over the fence, but doesn't see it's a chasm. It's a cliff.
It's a guardrail.
And so so when you read Proverbs and when you read, it's just so obvious that following what Yahweh says is the good and right and proper thing to do is protection for us. It is not a costly thing, but in our modern day, we have taken the law, the Torah, as being, if you're doing that, you're just hurting yourself because Messiah came to free us from the law. No, the law was never considered bad. The psalmist wrote how beautiful and wonderful, and it was actually considered a blessing. It was unique. We are the one people, Israelites,
to whom was entrusted.
Exactly. The instructions of Yahweh were entrusted, given to me.
His way.
And so they were highly valued. And so it's a shift. It's a paradigm shift to realize he doesn't tell us anything to do that is not for our own good, for our health, for our prosperity, for the health and prosperity of our children. It is our guardrail. And I'll tell you, I have felt it. I have felt it and I've seen it, and I can't unsee that little meme, and I love that meme.
Sorry, guys, we've been going off. Yes.
Right.
No, I like listening.
Any questions? We've just been chattering away, and we don't really know. We've been doing this now long enough that we don't really know when we've quit communicating with people because of what we're saying is a different jargon or different vernacular, or We just don't know when we've lost people.
I don't think you guys got too far off the beaten path.
Did you follow what we were saying? Okay.
I did.
Okay. All right. Sometimes I just
You
feel
guys
like
covered a lot. but
Yeah,
It was,
it's good.
I think we understood.
We do this at home a lot.
Well,
Ping pong it. Hey, what about this?
guys. Anything else on 28? Or are we ready to move on to Psalm 91? Okay. So, I mean, Terry, you read that. Terry, you read this? No, I mean, I do never any pressure for the read, but I just always want to make sure you know you can whenever you're ready. So, is this the time or move on to Joe?
You don't want to read?
Well, I'll let you guys read. You get to the book.
I'll let mom read this.
Well, it is a favorite.
Can you sing
Psalm 91. He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the El Shaddai, he is saying, Yahweh, my refuge and my stronghold, my Elohim, in whom I trust. For he delivers you from the snare of a trapper, from the destructive pestilence. He covers you with his feathers, and under his wings you take refuge. His truth is a shield and armor. You're not afraid of the dread by night, nor of the arrow that flies by day, of the pestilence that walks in darkness, of destruction that ravages at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it does not come near you. Only with your eyes you look on and see the reward of the wicked. Because you've made Yahweh, my refuge, the Most High, your dwelling place, no evil befalls you, and a plague does not come near your tent. For he commands his messengers concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They bear you up in their hands, lest you dash your foot against a stone. You tread upon the lion and cobra, young lion and serpent, you trample underfoot. Because he clings to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I exalt him because he's known my name. When he calls upon me, I answer him. I'm with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem him. And with long life, I satisfy him and show him my deliverance. That is a 10-week conference on that all by itself.
You know, we were, your mom was sharing today, feed from somebody. We follow people who are in this Torah movement, and they all have different perspectives. But it seems like one of the common themes, and it's like they repeat each other. They feed off of each other. And we have the word of faith movement out there that many people will categorize as the name it and claim it.
Blab it and grab it.
Blab it and grab it. And then what is the other thing what did they call it today?
It's word of faith.
What's it called?
Health and wealth gospel.
Well, we're not necessarily trying to affirm all of the teachings of certainly not all those ministries, but the very concept that somebody is coming against the word of the health and wealth people, the very thought of that, it just seems so. I think they're just repeating things because they're not thinking it through. Because here's an example we were talking about in response to that, how that is, if you go back to Mount Sinai and the covenant as it's brought forth and given to you, and then the promise was that if you will diligently obey my voice, then we could read Psalm 91. You could follow that right up.
I'll take sickness away from your midst.
There is no sickness. There's no poverty. There's nothing. If you will make him your Elohim, then this is what you get. And that is health and wealth. So there's no such thing as, if you're going to be a radiant, a radical, serious believer, believing Elohim, then you will be a proponent of health and wealth. You cannot not. It's like, even, and I know I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but you've always said this, and I've heard this for forever. Is that in
Pre
order
marriage.
to be a blessing to others, you have to have something to bless them with. And I just read that or saw that again, and I think it was even I think I read it in scriptures. I'm just reading so many scriptures it all runs together these days. But yeah, for you, for him to use you as a birakath, a blessing to others, he's got to bless you, and so it all flows through.
Yeah, it's got to come to your hand before it can go out into
It
somebody else.
doesn't need to be monetary or financial blessing, but wisdom, you don't have to
Yes,
be, don't have to have money for that though.
Well, actually,
And
wisdom.
that would not be what people consider health and wealth.
But it's all part of the blessing. Everything everything that is good, though, is what you get. Wisdom. If you are following him, and we just read that in Proverbs 28. Didn't we just read it? If you follow the Torah, you will increase. As you pursue him, you will grow in all of these things. You'll grow in wisdom. You'll grow in all of the things that would be
Yeah,
something to
but
pass on.
people expect Christians to live, poor, to give everything away to the poor, everything you have, give it away, and
Well,
So
what kind of situation will you be in if you give everything away constantly?
yeah, you wouldn't necessarily. Are you saying that you wouldn't really be able to bless others if you're giving away everything all the time? Is that your point?
one thing, if we give our car away,
And
if I give my car away, I can't get to work to earn money too.
What
I
were you
mean,
trying to say? I'm not sure.
well, that's what people expect. They don't, they view Christians as rich Christians, they view as charlatans and people who just take advantage of other people and take their money, and then they go buy sports cars and other things when they expect those people to be giving it away to sources to help further the kingdom, not for a sports car for this pastor or whatever. That's a contention that a lot of people have.
Um,
Is the health and prosperity that you guys are talking about where you can afford those extra things, or what is it?
so one of the things, just as an example,
Was that a question? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yahushua said that if you give houses, money, brother, sister, whatever you give up for the kingdom, that you'll have in this life 100-fold with persecutions. I assure you, I've heard their testimony about it, that the Kenneth Copelands and the Keith Moores of this world, they've endured persecution. But they'll challenge you that you meaning anybody, have no idea the percentage of their wealth that they've given away. I know Kenneth Copeland has, in the last report, 12 airplanes he'd bought and with cash and given them away. So is he wrong to have an airplane if he's already given away to other ministries airplanes? If somebody's given away cars, if they have a nice car, is that wrong for them to have a nice car? But the master said, you're going to get persecuted for it. So just expect it. You're going to have to endure the persecution.
And
I'll find it.
the answer to that, in my opinion, would be Torah again. If you are in violation of Torah, then that'd be one thing. But one of the things that is happening is that somebody would be, let's say there's a minister who has the sports car that people look at and think, you're not supposed to have that as a minister of Yahuwah's work. Well,
because how can he be driving that and then see this homeless guy on the side of the road and just keep driving?
That's probably a discussion I wouldn't be. I'm not qualified. I don't want to pretend that I'm qualified to have that discussion. I think I would have to answer, and it depends. It just depends. If the Torah of Yahweh was for him to get the car, fine. But if it isn't, and he should have taken that money and given it to others, as everybody is contending, then that would be a problem. If he should have taken that money and been giving it away to others, then that would be a problem. And that would be the contention of most, that everybody should be giving everything away. But that was not the ways of Israel. back in the days, and they had the priests were not they were not wealthy, and yet they had responsibilities to the poor. There was always the poor. So I guess we moved into a part of a conversation that I'm not qualified. None of us here are qualified for. If somebody is taking resources that are meant for something else to use on their personal stuff,
That's different.
That's vile. That's not what we're talking. I'm saying though that if well, just I'll take you for example. Here we are in this situation, and you want a nice car, you want a nice home, but you're in ministry. It isn't just the pastor who has responsibility to the poor. We all have responsibility to the poor. So why are you going to take? You could be driving a clunker, and you could take that money and you could give it. It never ends. It never ends what we could be doing with our resources that we've been given. I don't think we're necessarily called to give up everything we have to others. We're called to be
Good stewards.
good stewards, and what would be that, to have that heart of
To give, not
compassion,
you're
to
not
be
owned
generous,
by the things.
to be but not to give everything away, to just be generous though of heart. And if that's true of us, that we are not aren't expected to not drive a nice car or live in a nice house, so that would, I guess that could also apply to ministers. But some of this would go in directions. That's not the point of what we would be talking about here today.
I'm only playing the devil's advocate, so to speak, because that
You've
is
gotten
the only
it.
question.
Sure.
It comes up everywhere.
I know.
Let me
And I'm certain that people who come by us, they're going to ask us about that. And that's why I was asking, I wanted to get your take on this.
Well,
I have 3 scriptures.
go ahead.
So Mark 10, this is Jesus, Yahushua speaking. He says, truly I tell you, no one who has left home or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or fields for my sake and the sake of the gospel will fail to receive 100-fold in the present age, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and fields, along with persecutions, and in the age to come, eternal life. So when you give up something for the gospel, and usually Keith Moore would say, be led. Yes, it's of course, give to the poor. You try to help people. You have compassion. That your things don't own you. If Yahweh gives you a witness that you need to give such and such away, give it away, because you're going to get blessed for it. And Luke says, Jesus, all 3 gospels, or 3 of the gospels, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, all have this same passage. It was notable. Truly I tell you, Yeshua replied, no one who has left home or wife or brothers or parents or children for the sake of the kingdom of Yahweh will fail to receive many times more in this age and in the age to come, eternal life. The point is, can you handle the persecution? Because you're going to get persecuted. I know who you're talking about that said something to you, and I've heard it myself many times.
It doesn't matter.
Um,
From the perspective of what we want to do here, though, it's not really for us to even though we brought it up and we talked about it, it's not for us to try to figure out all of this stuff. What I would suggest, what I would wholeheartedly put myself behind, is this idea that we just read in Psalm 91, that if our objective, our responsibility isn't to go out and try to get money, to go get wealth, or to worry about how we're even passing it around. Our responsibility is to do right, to do Torah, to follow hard after. And then the question becomes, you're not doing it to obtain these things, but if you had, just like they did at Mount Sinai, had they listened diligently to his voice, could they have outspent his blessing? Would they even have poor in the land? And this is what I would, as a ministry of sorts, the messaging I want is that just do Torah, which is whatever the instructions are. Follow hard after, obey with all diligence, do what you're called to do, and then see if you know, we're just promised health and we're promised, and then how do you outpace it? And then you can figure out what you got to do with all the wealth and I say wealth. I mean, it doesn't, because it doesn't have to be measured in money. It could be in
There's all sorts of wealth.
Be in other things, but just see if you can really outpace his blessings.
And I want to add one more scripture on this subject matter, and it's talking about wisdom. This is Proverbs 3. Let's see. My son, do not forget my Torah, and let your heart watch over my commands. For length of days and long life and shalom they add to you. Let not kindness and truth forsake you. Bind them around your neck and write them on the tablet of your heart, thus finding favor and good insight in the eyes of Elohim and man. Trust in Yahuwah with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. Know him in all your ways, and he makes your paths straight. He makes all of your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Revere Yahuwah and turn away from evil. It is healing to your navel and moistening to your bones. Esteem Yahuwah with your goods and with the first fruits of all your increase. Then your storehouses shall be filled with plenty, and your vats overflow with new wine. My son, do not despise the discipline of Yahuwah, and do not loathe his reproof. For whom Yahuwah loves, he also reproves. As a father, the son whom he delights in. But blessed and Baruch is the man who's found wisdom, and the man who gets understanding. For the gain from it is better than the gain from silver, and its increase than fine gold. Wisdom, she is more precious than rubies, and all your delights are not comparable to her. For length of days is in her right hand, and riches and glory or esteem in her left hand. All her ways are pleasant ways, and all her paths are shalom. She is a tree of life to those taking hold of her, and Baruch or blessed are all those who retain her. So I could keep reading, but he says if you have wisdom, that you'll have long life in one hand and wealth and riches in the other. So it's about how do we handle those things? Are we greedy and covetous? Do we oppress the poor? Do we do any of those things? That's absolutely considered evil. He doesn't like that. Usury, loaning with interest. He says, hey, if somebody asks you for your loan, you give them the money.
So how is this all fitting with what your question is and what you're asking and the point you're making? Do you have a point to make in it?
There's no point I'm trying to make. I'm just trying to glean what your guys' thoughts are on it and what you would say to other people.
What would you say to other people?
Well, I would say follow the Torah, like what you were saying. But if we do what we're told, we are sowing, then we're harvesting. Out of that harvest, we give to Yahuwah our first fruits and the best of what we have. And then the rest is for us and our needs, and then feast if we want it. And then it's for us to decide what to do with. That's my mind of it. If everyone followed the Torah and did what they were supposed to, no one would be poor.
Exactly.
Some people are poor for a reason.
So do you think
if I just do what I'm called to do, I think that's all. I think that's all we're required to do. Anything more is extra out of the goodness of our heart.
Yeah.
Well,
Probably for what, maybe I shouldn't have even brought it up in this environment,
It's a
but
good
it is
subject.
it's
It's
a
important.
theme, it's a theme that keeps coming out, but it's not one I want to engage in. I do not want to get engaged in, what the church thinks about whether people should have nice things or not.
It's not even the church, it's everyone. It's mostly people who look at the church and say, all those hypocrites.
Deuteronomy 8:18 says that Yahuwah gave us, he's saying, this is Yahuwah speaking, I've given you the power to obtain wealth, to establish my covenant. You can't establish anything when you have no resources to establish it. But he said, just remember, when you're prosperous, when you're healthy, when you've gotten fat, just remember who gave it to you. That's Deuteronomy 8. He says, just remember me in that. Don't think it's because you did something. I empowered you to get wealth, to establish my covenant. Just remember it's from me. And remember him, give him the honor and the credit and the glory. But he said, how can anybody establish anything if they have no resources to do it? And why should the wicked only have the influence? The wicked have the resources, so the wicked have all the influence. How can you influence anybody if you don't have any resources?
So what have you observed out there? Is that how people think? Or is that how you observe people thinking about people of the church?
I just don't even talk about it to anyone. I just try to just keep it to myself.
Keep my
Yeah,
eyes
because I just feel like it kind of starts an argument.
It does, because people will say, why do they have that big church? They don't need that building.
Start the argument.
No,
I
they're not.
know.
So
That's also what I picked up on. So I just,
Well, there's wisdom in that, because Proverbs always, there's 2 verses back to back. One says, don't answer a fool according to his folly. And the next verse is, answer a fool according to his folly. So what do we do with that? Well, be led. There's times we need to just leave it alone. Let their little insult or their jab drop. And other times you might be led to answer it and get the words of wisdom from the Spirit to answer properly.
if you turn your back on them, they don't exist anymore.
Well, okay.
just kidding.
I just to refresh on Psalm 91. It was just such an awesome.
It is. It's
It
wonderful.
really is the reflection of the spirit we're supposed to have, and then with the spirit that we have, what we're going to receive back from Yahweh. So
Oh, I want to just real quick on this then. It's personal. One of the things in this is personal. It says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High, who abides under the shadow of the El Shaddai, he is saying of Yahweh, you're my refuge, you're my fortress, you're my deliverer, in you I trust. He's speaking directly. So it's a personal thing. It's when we call him those things, it is an act of it's a statement of your attitude. It is, I'm clinging to you. I'm clinging to you. And he takes that serious. It's kind of like saying when David said, Yahweh is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not be in lack. It's my shepherd. It's not somebody else's shepherd. It's not your mom's shepherd. It's not your dad's shepherd. It's not your brother's shepherd. He's my shepherd. I shall not want.
I also noticed in verse 14 where it changed from the perspective, for he commands his messengers concerning you, they bear you up, etc. And then in verse 14 it says, because he clings to me in love. So suddenly this is Yahweh speaking. Because in verse 14, it's Yahweh here through the rest. Because he clings to me in love, therefore I deliver him. I exalt him. Because he has known my name, when he calls on me, I answer him. I am with him in distress. I deliver him and esteem him. With long life, I satisfy. Anyway, that's
Show him my.
We haven't changed.
One translation says with
Before I
one.
forget,
Oh, go ahead.
at the meeting, if we do get called up for the elite, I do plan on bringing up Yahweh.
Okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I do plan on bringing up Yahweh if we are called to do a speech up there.
Good.
Okay. Do you plan on? Is that okay?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. If we end up getting it and they're going to ask us to speak, we'll have a conversation about it.
I think it's proper and right.
I think this is a pretty good ending point here. So
Well, Mom was going to say something else.
One translation just says, with long life, I will satisfy him and show him all the ways I can save. I love that. Because deliverance is an all-encompassing word.
you got anything?
Oh, well, yeah, but we'll call it a day.
We'll never end if we keep going. The Yahweh may Barak and guard us. Yahweh may make your face shine upon us and show favor to us. Yahweh, may lift up your face upon us and grant us shalom. Thank you for all your provisions because you take care of us so well. And we thank you for the food we're about to share. We ask that you would baruch it and bless it. Bless it and make it pure, make it good to us. And thank you. Amen.
Well, Haley, I'm hoping the chili isn't too.
You can end the recording.
Oh,